1. We may go into closed session in the meeting. If we do so, I will cite the subsection. Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody's here. So first item is special recognitions.
All right. This time I'll have Mr. Cagle from the high school come down. He has some special recognitions to give out.
I gave everybody a copy of our latest newsletter here at the high school, and we've got several students and several student groups doing well at the high school. And in fact, on one of the pages, I've listed all the areas in which we have had students qualify for state level competition, and I'm going to recognize two of those groups tonight. But I know that y'all were doing a work session and talked about the word opportunity. The opportunities that you've provided these students have allowed them to shine and be successful. One of these students is represented Kennedale ISD in a different area. We do not have a standing swim team or swim program. It is really cold outside and would be really hard for someone to swim, but this next young lady has swam with a club team in Mansfield, and for the last 4 years has represented Kennedale High School as the lone swimmer. And for the last 3 years, she has qualified for the state UIL, and it is Class 5A swimming and diving meet. Everyone 5A and under swims at the state meet in Class 5A. In the Class 5A this year at the district meet, she won first place in the 200 free and the 100-yard butterfly. She won first place at the regional meet in both of those events. And then at the state, she went, and I said, you always want to leave it all on the court or all in the field, this time or all in the pool. She did. She set personal records in both of her events. She left it all out there. I said, she can always say she saved the best for last. She did. She got on the podium at the state meet, third place in the 200-yard freestyle, and she did receive a ribbon, fifth place at the 100-yard butterfly. I asked her to bring all of her swimming and diving medals from this year from district, regional, and state meet. Alexis Wheeler, come on up. As she comes on up, Alexis, you had someone there by your side all year swimming with you in these past 4 years at Kennedale High School. Who is that?
My dad was there supporting me with coaching, and then I had all my teammates from club helping me out, pushing me to go faster, and then of course my coaches.
I do want to recognize and we want to appreciate the help of James and Phone Wheeler. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Hear that plane thing? She still has some meets with her club team, so she's not yet able to sleep in. Okay. Opportunities. We give some opportunities, and this next group represents that. This board gave this group an opportunity they haven't had in a few years, and that you see their shirts right there. I see some Mickey Mouse outlines. This school board gave this group an opportunity to participate at a national competition, but I'm going to back up. This group went to a state UIL competition where they made the finals and placed in the top 20. And they did do another competition this year. They did the UCA, an organization that hosts cheerleading competitions regionally, statewide, and nationwide. They did qualify for the national UCA event that was held at Disney World. This board did hear that they wanted to go on that trip, allowed that opportunity to happen. They did reach the finals and finished 12th place at that national competition. The coaches, Miss Lily McSwain is the assistant coach. The head coach is Chasmin Jenkins. Coaches, will y'all come on down and bring the 2020 trophy that you received at the UCA competition? And cheerleaders, will you come on down so that we can recognize you and the excellence that we've had for Cheer Kennedale? Y'all head over here.
It's still pyramid.
All right, cheerleader pose.
Happy hands.
Yes.
Hands on hips,
Have happy hands.
hands on lips, smiles on lips. That's what we say.
We had one more recognition tonight. That was for Officer Starling. He did have an event where he is in charge of an event with his children tonight, couldn't be here. So I did promise him that we would give him this honor at another time when I could embarrass him. So thank you, and I appreciate all of these honors.
And we had another recognition from the junior high. She's not here yet at this time, so if she shows up a little bit later, we will come back to that at a later time. Okay. All right.
All right, that'll bring us down to the consent agenda. Were any calls made on the consent agenda? So if not, if there's nothing needs to be changed, all items underneath this heading can be approved with a single motion.
Make a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And bring it down to new business. Item A there.
Public comments are burned on.
Yeah, no one signed up for public comments.
You check.
Yeah, we just brought them in.
So now, new business. The academic calendar.
Yellow folder, I believe.
So there was two options there, but this is the one they settled on, which is basically option two. Only thing I saw different was in June, the 4 days highlighted in yellow.
So in your folders, I sent you two options. This is the calendar that was recommended by the DEIC committee. It's the color-coded, the printer that was printed for you. The primary difference between this one and the other option is on November 2nd and 3rd. So we have a school holiday on November 2nd, and we have a staff development day on November 3rd.
Questions on this? The IC committee just approved this.
Yeah, so this was developed within the DEIC committee. We collected feedback, we collected preferences, and we came up with multiple options. They narrowed it down to two. We collected stakeholder feedback via email, social media, asking for people to express their preferences, narrowed it down there. The DEIC reviewed the feedback, and they voted and selected this one to be recommended to the board.
That was the only difference there on the second, right?
Of the two that I sent you, yes, ma'am. We had multiple iterations of the calendar based on different preferences, but this is the big difference.
May 31st as a district holiday on one, you don't have it on the other. But that's just a holiday at the end of the year.
Yes. It's Memorial Day. Yeah, it should be on both of them if it was a typographical error, but yeah.
School's out.
It's for the year-round employees have been gifted
Great.
that week.
And for staff.
Women as well.
Questions or comments?
The number of school days is the same, correct? 172?
I don't have both of them in front of me, but yeah, it's based on the number of minutes. If you look, are you looking at the one?
Both of them. I brought it. I printed it.
Okay, yeah, you printed it. Yeah, the key difference, when we were looking at different options, we were looking at the number of flex days. Several of the members of the DAC expressed a desire to have more staff development embedded within the school year, so we can do targeted professional learning. They also expressed a preference for having some time off in October. The different, starting the beginning of the year and not having to break into November was challenging for some families. We blocked off the STAR testing dates because that's a time we need to work around.
Any other questions or comments? I'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, hold on one second. Who?
I made it.
John made the motion. Drew second.
Okay, I'll just write it. It's not on here, so I didn't know. She's
Made a
not
motion
looking.
to approve the school calendar as presented.
Okay, so who did it? I'm trying to find it. I wasn't listening. I'm sorry. John Clark and who?
Drew.
Andrew.
Thank you for keeping us in line. We'll stay.
Came in. You want to go back to recognition at all?
Yeah, let's go back and do that. Let's take an emergency break here and go back to the recognition section.
So I know here at Kennedale ISD, we are changing lives, but it's not every day that we get to actually save a life. And so I wanted to recognize Savannah Drummond, who we had a student who was actually choking on some food, and Ms. Drummond, through her quick thinking, was able to perform the Heimlich maneuver and actually save a student's life. So I wanted to recognize Savannah Drummond. Let me read what this has. And so for her plaque, it says, Kennedale ISD would like to recognize you for your heroic life-saving actions on January 15, 2020. At Kennedale Junior High, you quickly responded to a student in need, recognizing that she was choking, and performed the Heimlich maneuver. Your awareness and quick response saved a life that day. We commend you in your willingness to step up and help. Your actions did not go unnoticed.
Thank you.
Great job.
All right, Dr. Wu, you're back up.
This is item B in our new business, discuss and consider pre-kindergarten exemption.
Okay. So in your yellow folders, I also provided some additional information. It's in your board book as well. So I provided the information from the state. I am here today to discuss the HB3 requirement that we move from a half-day pre-K to a full-day pre-K, as well as request approval for a waiver. So if you pull in your yellow folders, if you look at the presentation that I shared with you, we are required fall 2019 to implement a full-day pre-K program. The state has offered opportunities to request exemptions from this particular requirement. If we're unable to implement full day immediately, districts must submit a request. So if you turn the page, you can see, this is the document I included in the board book. You can see that there is a 1-year exemption option, 2-year, and 3-year. So 1 year, and that begins this fall, 2019, 2020. You're required to gather data, submit and consider proposals at a public meeting for a partnership. So we held a public meeting on November 18th, 2019, and we received a single proposal, which I also included in the board book. So you can take a look at that. After the district receives and considers partnership proposals, they can make the decision to establish a partnership and or construct, repurpose, or lease a new space to move forward with this option. That's for 1 year, and then you would begin full-day pre-K for all eligible 4-year-olds, the 2020-2021 school year. The year 2 option is the same, but then you have the extra step of year 2, you have a public meeting, you solicit proposals, and then you have to ensure that you have at least one partnership or at least one constructed, repurposed, or leased classroom that you add to the program. And then the 3-year exemption option, same as before. And then the 3rd year, you have to hold a public meeting, solicit and consider proposals, and then add at least one additional classroom. So this particular option, the 3-year option, allows districts to phase into a full-day pre-K over a 3-year period, as opposed to implementing it immediately. So one piece that I want to bring to your attention is that in reviewing and considering the proposal that we received and discussing it about what is in the best interest of our students in Kennedale, we consider the number of transitions between campuses, moving from different places. We also considered the opportunity that we have if we keep them at Delaney where they are now, building a culture and cultivating community among our littlest wildcats in a way that might not be possible if we had a partnership with an outside entity. And therefore the recommendation is that we request a 3-year exemption waiver. So if you turn the page, this is the recommendation that we are proposing. One thing that I want to clarify is that we are currently serving all eligible 4-year-olds in our district who wish to enroll. So we don't have any 4-year-olds at this point who come in, they want to enroll, that we are turning away. The requirement is moving from a half day to a full day. So it's not as if we have students who come to us and say, oh, we want to enroll in your half day program, and we turn them away. That's not happening. In terms of moving to a full day, there are different schools of thought about the effectiveness of that particular model, because when you factor in things like lunch and nap time and all the things, the extra instructional minutes that the students are receiving are not necessarily significantly more than the ones that they're receiving now with the half-day program, where they don't have those things built in. So our recommendation is that this year we don't have a full-day pre-K option. The statute was passed and we were not able to implement that. We are proposing that beginning fall 2020, we start by adding a full day with our bilingual students. So that would be 1 to 2 classrooms depending on enrollment. So you see here, so we have the classrooms, the additional teachers, and then the cost of the salaries, furniture, supplies, and for the additional classroom. And we are proposing that we repurpose a classroom that we have now to meet this requirement. 2021, 2022, we would add an additional full-day classroom, so that we're adding 1 to 2 per year, so that the fall of 2022, we would have a full day pre-K for all of our eligible 4-year-olds. It would be an estimate of 6 to 8 teachers with 6 to 8 paraprofessionals. The ratio is 1 to 11, so you would have a teacher and a paraprofessional per 22 students in our pre-K programs. That would give the district an opportunity to phase in this program slowly, intentionally, thoughtfully, and beautifully. So with that being said, one thing also that I want to clarify is that we are in the process of collecting data to ensure that we're accurately projecting our future enrollment numbers. So I've included a bit.ly here. I've also included on the one pager that I gave you a QR code, so you have choices with how you would like to access this. And what it is a form that Dr. Keyes created for us that is beautiful. It's an interactive Google form, so you can go in, and it has a map, and it says, do you live in Kennedale border, within Kennedale ISD, and you can find your house, and you can click on it, and it asks you a series of questions to determine whether or not you're eligible. If you get to the end and you are eligible, there's a contact form so that we can collect the information for that particular family. If they're not eligible, it gives them a note with an explanation of currently we're serving this particular group of students. So we're going to be able to collect some information, some contact information, so we can reach out to the families and help them through the enrollment process. We're also going to we're calling it a pre-K extravaganza. It's a time when families can come. We're thinking about, different ideas, but we recently did something with the Pro Check trucks, and they came out and they had all kinds of activities for our students. So something that's going to encourage families to come, and they can do, some fun activities with their students, and then also enroll in pre-K while they're there. So just an event to get families up. So we're doing some active recruitment, some targeted event planning to collect data and ensure that we have as accurate as possible in terms of the numbers that we're going to enroll. And if you turn to the next page, here are some things just to think about. So early childhood special education would be included in these numbers. That's the number of minutes that's required annually. It's the same for all of our K-12 students. Growth may influence projected enrollment. So even with this targeted recruitment, if we have families who are moving into the district, we may or may not know that this year if they're not moving in until next year or the following year. Our goal and our vision for this program is to cultivate rich learning opportunities for our youngest Wildcats through rich language exchanges, positive social interactions, active exploratory experiences, multisensory engagement, literacy-rich and numeracy-rich classrooms. And so we have big dreams for what that can look like and how we're going to really serve this group of students, and we're really excited about the possibilities for that.
That's really kind of where I come in, is that where we have been exploring. We've talked about Mansfield with their early childhood center. Granbury also has a early childhood center that's modeled off the same thing, which is providing experiences for children that they normally wouldn't have. And when you're looking at students who qualify for full day pre-K, they don't normally have experiences that other children have. And so creating that experiential learning environment is what we really are kind of focusing on and targeting here. And so some potential solutions for our pre-K. So in order to bring the experiential learning environment, we would like for an early learning center to incorporate and to meet the requirements of the state mandates. And I will say that those mandates are substantial, considering that in the recent past, our legislators have called it daycare, not pre-K. And so for them to switch their terminology and the way they look at it and view it, that is, a great opportunity for us to make a difference in children's lives a whole lot sooner. And so to create that environment, we'd like to incorporate, we believe that we need to look at other options than what is currently in place or was in place previously in the CIA building. Originally, I thought we would just renovate that building and we'd be all right. But looking at it, it's not going to meet the needs of what we're going to need. Renovating the existing wing of the CIA building that was previously utilized for pre-K is not a viable option, as renovations would potentially cost more than a new construction. Tearing down that section of the building and potentially the gym would reduce the cost of fixing the roof of that building significantly It would also open up space to relocate Delaney's playground, more parking, and better traffic flow around Delaney. If we were to build a new facility, we could also have several options for where to potentially build an early learning center. You could, if we were to tear it down, you'd have that footprint of where it was, and you have that space to utilize. We also have the field beside Delaney, and we have the 12 acres off of Wildcat Way that we potentially could use as well. And then you could even, if you use the 12 acres on Wildcat Way, you could make it a true early learning center and make it experiential for pre-K and kindergarten. So you could make it even larger. So there's lots of options here. We also have the study with UTA and are moving to hiring someone to analyze our existing spaces and facilities for additional utilization options. From these studies, we will use the data to determine campus capacities and demographic location of our students in our district and existing boundaries. Another potential option, we could redistribute grade levels for better space and educational environments such as a pre-K through first campus and a second through fourth campus, and remodel those campuses to facilitate the same type of learning environments that we're talking about. We believe we will impact student growth and learning through this. These options present a better way to serve our students and potentially bring in more families to KISD in our younger grade levels. So with that, we're going to propose that we go to the 3-year waiver to give us time to sit there and explore these options.
Can you remind me of the qualifications for those that get to come to pre-K?
Sure. Free and reduced lunch, homeless, child of active duty military, or a person who has been injured. It's part of the armed forces, foster care. Yeah.
And then and then
And the English learners, yes, ma'am.
Question, the first 2 years, you're gonna have full, have all-day pre-K for some, but you're still gonna have the half?
Yeah, so we're going to offer the half day, and then we're going to slowly phase in the full day. One thing to think about too, there are different models, but Mansfield built a center recently, and it's the coolest thing I've seen as an educator in my whole career. It's amazing. Though Holly Teague, it actually was her brainchild. I know you had an opportunity to speak with her earlier tonight, and she visited one of the centers at one of the region centers. I think it was Houston, San Antonio area. I can't remember which one. And it's a museum. It's a place where they have schools come and visit. It's like museum day. It's very much like the Science Museum. It's a pro museum. And she was sitting there in a presentation, and she said, why can't every day be museum day, right? So, meaning matters, context matters. So you can teach phonics, and you can teach a kid to sound out horse. Horse. But if they've never seen horse and they don't know what that means, they can't read that word, even though that they can sound it out. And so the idea is that I provided this one pager for you here. It's just some different quotes from some highly regarded researchers. But it talks about, we hear about the achievement gap. These students aren't performing at the same level as these students. I think it's better termed to be an opportunity gap as opposed to an achievement gap. It's not that these students can't, it's that they don't have the same opportunities because they're not coming into kindergarten with the same level of experiences, building the background knowledge. So one way that the Mansfield Center is set up, and it's not the only way to do it, but they have it broken up into different rooms, and I had the opportunity to visit. They give tours. Literacy and numeracy are built into all of the classrooms. So they're building the background knowledge while they're also building the literacy and numeracy skills. So off the top of my head, they have an ocean room, right? So when you go into the ocean room, they have a touch tank. And they have some fish, and they have starfish, they have different things. But when they have the alphabet on the wall, and they're teaching the kids phonics, they're teaching the kids letters, S is for sea urchin. S is for star, and so they're teaching it that way. When you go into the zoo room, they have turtles, actual turtles, and they have different things. Z is for zebra, A is for aardvark. So they're teaching kids how to read, but then they're building the background knowledge within it. They have a space room, so they have a reading nook where you go into the spaceship and you read books about space. It's really neat. They have the kids counting things. So when I was in the ocean room, I had a 4-year-old say something, was talking about the touch tank, and the 4-year-old told me, and I have a 4-year-old at home, so I have a point of comparison there. My 4-year-old is lovely, but he doesn't talk like this. The student said something, yeah, so the clownfish, they're very sensitive to the pH balance, and so we know when we're looking at the pH balance that if the clownfish are struggling, then the starfish, they won't survive, and so we put this clownfish in first. And I'm thinking, pH balance, huh? It's really interesting. My 4-year-old doesn't know that word, and so they're learning how to count and they're learning how to write. There was another student who was writing 2 + 4 = 6, which, if you know much about pre-K, that's amazing, because writing it themselves, because he was counting termites and he cared about those termites and he wanted to know how to express that because he wanted, it was amazing. On the tour, when they go around, they say that the superintendent went to the principal of the building and said, if we see a worksheet, you're fired. Everything you do is hands-on, experiential, you're learning by doing, you're immersed in it, you're building the background knowledge while you're also building these literacy and numeracy skills. We want that for our students. We want that opportunity. Mansfield has a wait list. Kennedale's small enough. We can serve our kids. They do have, so they serve the eligible 4-year-olds, and then they do have tuition included. So they have a certain number of spots that are reserved for tuition. But here's the thing that's really neat. It's not just the 4-year-olds who are eligible who get to experience that. They built extra classrooms, so when we were there, the kindergarten kids take field trips to the academy, so the kindergarten kids get to come and rotate through the rooms as well, which is really neat. So all the students in that particular district get to experience the academy, whether they attend pre-K there or not. So Mr. G talked about the opportunity to making it an early learning center. This could be something for more than just our pre-K students. That's a big dream, right? But that's why we're asking for a 3-year waiver, because we want to think about what's possible and what we could do for our students, and we want time to do it well and thoughtfully and strategically and intentionally.
So the 3-year waiver, this next year.
This is year 1.
Okay, this is year 1. So the next year we would have 2 full day.
1 to 2. We're going to start with our bilingual group.
Okay.
It depends on how many enroll.
And then the 3rd year, you have to add another group.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got the form. We find out who's eligible. How do we select which kids? You mentioned.
So year 1 would be bilingual. So if you're going to be part of the bilingual classroom, then you would be full day, and the rest of the group would be half day. Okay. For year 2, there are different options. I would like some more time to do some research on what other districts are doing. You can do a lottery. You can do a first come, first serve. There are a lot of different ways to do it. I care about.
I'm just wondering, the kid that doesn't get in, like, what's our justification for other than we don't have room? Like,
I would like some time to do some more research. Yeah, it's a really important question, and I don't want to. Yep. I don't want to give you an answer before I can.
The UTA survey, so we'll know potentially how many.
Mm-hmm. And we have the census data coming in, and that's going to be really helpful too. So there are just so many unknown factors that right now we can't answer, but it's coming soon. And so if we grant this waiver, then we'll have time to really think.
And so looking at that dream. Okay, when do you envision that you have enough information to say we can commit to that dream? Because from the standpoint of doing it, we're probably potentially talking about a bond election, which is, if we talk about it now, we're probably talking in May of next year to do the bond election, which may or may not pass. Mm-hmm. So, when do you think you'll have the information in a place that we can start discussing whatever it is we're going to build or commit to?
We should, I think that's where I have to come in. We should have the UTA study in 16 weeks, which should be around May. The other study that I'm looking at doing, we should have that in approximately, I'd say, 3 months. So by the time we get to the summertime, we will have a pretty good idea of where we stand, as far as the data that we're collecting.
So that means potentially if bond money is needed, we're now talking about a bond election in the May of 2021. Construction carries us into 2022.
Mm-hmm. You can file for an additional waiver if needed. That is an option. It's not one that I included on the chart that I shared with you tonight, but that is an option.
Okay. They took away the November bond election.
No, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do it, but again, the ballot.
Takes time.
The November ballot, it's probably going to be 80 pages. And now the bonds require all that definition, all that explanation in the ballot. So it's at the end of, 80-page document, most people would be brain dead. And, again, a May election is probably less complicated. I'm just thinking about it in terms of when it actually happens. And then, the other part to it is, how critical is all teachers are critical, but the selection of the people that are at this level, how critical is that pool to find that one that's.
We grow people in Kennedale.
Okay.
We pick people who have potential and passion, and we give them the tools that they need to be successful.
I really think that teachers will jump at the opportunity to do this.
I do too.
A new classroom, totally new building.
If it's something that you all are interested in thinking about, I would love to schedule a tour. Holly offered to do that for us. It's one thing to hear it from me, it's another thing to see it for yourself. They have a rubric that they use to evaluate the classroom. So one is that they're teaching at the rigor that's required by the standard. Two is that they're teaching at the rigor required by the standard, and they're using the academic vocabulary that's aligned with the standard. And three, they're teaching at the rigor of the standard, they're using the academic vocabulary, and the students can use the vocabulary to explain it to you. The pH balance story illustrates that they're doing well. It's been featured on several news stations. If you just Google it, there's all kinds of things where they're interviewing kids. But if it's something you're interested in, I would be more than happy to set up a tour for you all to just see it for yourself, to see if it's something we want to think about.
And despite the waiver, children who would benefit by this, you believe will still continue to service a majority of those kids in need.
We're serving them now.
Right.
We want to serve them better. Okay. There's always a place to do better.
Okay.
One other question, part of this is tearing down the old gym. Tearing down the old gym, which is the cheer gym, which the cheerleaders that just left will be using. Are we replacing with another gym, or would they have to find a different space? Or
In looking at the old gym, and this is kind of some of the considerations that were taking into place, the floor is already starting to buckle, and
that's been
to
buckling
replace
for the last
to replace a wood floor, you're looking at $70,000 to $80,000 to replace the wood floor, to bring it back to condition. The bleachers are in bad shape.
Don't even go to the restroom.
no?
As to say, I mean,
Yeah.
other than my unless somebody's just really down to that gym, I don't see a real big purpose for it when we can utilize Arthur, we can utilize Patterson's gyms to do some of the same things that we've been doing. So,
I was just wondering, we create another space?
We've already been discussing, what that would displace. Our little dribblers, we can move to other gyms, and, eventually somewhere down the line, we'd like to sit there and there's some other ideas. Like I said, looking at the 5-year strategic plan, areas that we may be able to move our cheerleaders and dance team into eventually also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
So the waiver.
The waiver.
Vote on the
Yes.
waiver. Y'all have to approve the waiver.
A motion.
I make a motion that the board approve the pre-K exemption waiver as presented due to lack of facilities to meet the requirements.
The 3-year.
Have a motion in 2 seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I think that's personnel needs.
New hires.
Two new hires there. Actual. Need a motion for those? If you
I do not believe.
To hire the above referenced personnel for the remainder of the 1920 school year.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Other items. Okay. Old business. The media center.
As you know, we have had difficulties with our recording equipment and our ability to get out the recordings of the board meetings. So I'm going to I'll let Brian kind of take over from here and kind of go where we are on this. So.
Yeah, so we started getting proposals to refresh the equipment in this room actually last summer. This is about 7 months ago, and this is we've got our fourth quote, and there's just been customer service issues with some of the other vendors, and then there was one that just was in another universe as far as pricing goes, mostly due to added services and things like that. We found a vendor, FOH. They came highly recommended from another school district, and I've seen their work, and I can tell you their communication levels have been great up to this point. I feel pretty confident. They also happen to be the lowest priced bidder, and we're getting the same things that we were with all the other proposals. Just some of the highlights on this is we're looking at replacing these screens that automatically come down from the ceiling with one large static screen behind your table, and replacing these speakers, just taking these front speakers out and putting more speakers in to the rest of the area, so it'll be a balanced sound. They should be able to hear you more clearly all throughout the area. The rear screen would not be there anymore. We're talking about putting two TV monitors that are a little bit closer, kind of over where this row is. That'll be facing the presenter section and your table. So hopefully things like reading the spreadsheet from behind you, even on these screens, even turned right around, that was really difficult. You weren't able to read some of it. So hopefully that'll make some of this easier. And the controls for it will be through either a mobile app, a web browser, or we'll have a wall plate up there. The idea of the wall interface is to make this easy to go between presentations and board meetings. With presentations, we don't need cameras on, we don't need video recordings most of the time. We can do that, that's an option, but there's a button, presentation mode, and you push it and the projectors are on, the TVs are on, and yeah, that works. And then board meeting, you push a button and we're set to record, and we of course control the stopping of the recording. So we're looking at some both wired and wireless display options, so a presenter doesn't have to be glued to a podium. That was a really big deal at the Service Center before, is moving away from the podium model and into a more interactive kind of environment. So that's basically it. We're planning on continuing to use some of the microphones that we have here for now. If we determine that that's not, if we want to do something else, we can. These are durable. We have students who are in here, so they're not really as susceptible to being broken like a boom mic potentially would. So we'll see how the recordings work and how that goes. We're going to do some additional wireless antennas in here, so our wireless mics will work through these walls. So anyway, that's kind of where we are.
The reason for why we went with this company?
Yeah, highly recommended from another school district. I've seen their work. Their pricing is very good. I feel confident going with it. They've been in touch with me. Their communication's been excellent, and that matters a lot. I'll just tell you, having seen the opposite. So
How long will all this take?
Well, we are hoping, I would love to say we'll have this ready before the next board meeting. If not, it would be the one after that. So it'll move pretty quickly if we give this the go-ahead.
The installation and everything before the next board meeting, or just proposal?
No, the installation and everything. So we've got the proposal. It's right here.
Okay.
That's again, I don't hold me to before the next board meeting, but the one after that, I don't see us going past that.
Right. The 43,000, is that, I can't remember, was that above or below what we had thought about before in the strategic plan?
It's below, yes. We had thought about like the $50,000 range, so, and the previous quotes we had received were a little over 50,000, so.
Good.
So this is good.
And the arrangement of this equipment, is it adaptable and user-friendly?
That's one of the requirements. Like I say, pushing a button to get things set up. So a teacher can come in here, a presenter, you just push a button and it works. That's the goal.
And somewhat modular to the extent, for example, if the camera goes out, plug and play?
That one's a little tough. As far as replacing a camera goes, there's programming that will be involved, so we would need some help with that. The idea is to this company will warranty the work for a year, and then after that, we'll have them become an approved vendor and work with them. I'd like to keep some hours or so on a retainer so they can kind of come out and help us when we need it.
Was there anything here that you really wanted but they didn't offer?
No, I think this is a very practical solution for what we're wanting to do. I think it's going to be really awesome.
Good.
Right. This is below the threshold, so we don't need to do anything. Do I need to take action?
It's below the 50,000 threshold.
Yeah.
It's really just, it's because it wasn't budgeted for, you're gonna have to approve a budget amendment. And we've already included the budget amendment to it, so you just have to approve the budget amendment.
Are there any other questions for the stuff?
See the budget amendment there.
All right.
We need a motion to approve the budget amendment.
It's in here.
Is it in there?
Yeah. It's in one of the sheets on that section. I make a motion to approve the budget amendment as presented. I need it here.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now our update on roof.
Okay, more papers for you. Okay, so Mrs. Bowen and I went to a summary hearing in Fort Worth, courthouse in downtown Fort Worth last Wednesday, I believe it was. There's a summary hearing. There were 4 motions made before the judge. I got a phone call on this Tuesday that the judge ruled in favor of the school district on all 4 of the summary hearings. So it's very, very favorable for us. He denied 2 of the motions that the other the defendants made and approved the ones that we requested. So we're pressing now to go to trial on March 23rd. So all that is pretty much in this letter here. Some of you have it for your review. I'm just going to kind of summarize it without reading the whole thing. But we are scheduled to go to trial March 23rd. They do believe that the judge brought it up at the summary hearing, asked if we've gone to mediation. We said yes, but it was unsuccessful. But they do believe that he will try to bring us back to mediation before this all happens. And they may be more willing to mediate now, but we also are we're in the driver's seat a lot better than we were before with the mediation. But I think talking with our attorneys, we need to hold the line with what we're asking for. So they predict that the trial will take around 2 weeks, so it would roll over into April.
Great.
Okay, so that's where we are on that roof. Now, that's with our lawsuit. Now with our roofs, we are moving forward. We've been entertaining companies. We have another one in today, looking at consulting and job order contracting and what's the best method to go with to move forward with fixing the roofs at both the CIA building and Delaney. Okay. The CIA building right now, we have got to do something with that. We're in danger of having a similar situation with what happened with our half of the building. So we've got to get that building taken care of first. So that is our major priority first, and then moving to Delaney. And if we look at not roofing that entire building, we could probably get that done fairly quickly. So if we look at the other half, possibly not keeping that other half of the building. So that is
So right now we re-roof up to the CIA where that.
probably up to where the back half of the
Before
gym
that.
is before we get to the other wing. So there's a natural break right there that we've been looking at. And then the gym, you take the gym and you take that wing off, then we can roof that, I think, fairly quickly and fairly easy. and then move on to Delaney. Now, we're not gonna have the lawsuit done in any time to recover it, so we will be pulling from fund balance to do this. Any other questions on the roofs?
The end is in sight with the lawsuit.
Hopefully. Well, I mean, what we have to, what you have to realize is we will get the award for what they is owed basically that we have, but anything above and beyond that is subject to appeals. So, you know, we could get, the jury could come back, the jury could also come back and say we aren't getting anything, you know, that what you got's what you got. They could come back and give us a bigger award, but then that is subject to appeals and that could be tied up in courts for a longer period of time. So we can't bank on the fact that the roofs are gonna be paid for anytime soon unless we pay for it out of fund balance.
How long will it take to fix Delaney, do they think? Because I know there's lots of teachers that are.
Our hope is that both roofs would be fixed by the summer, before school starts next year. Now, don't quote me on that, but how fast, everything with the processes, you've got to get the qualifications and getting the specs and getting everything done. It's a process and it takes a while, and we've been going down that road, and every time we think we're making headway, you know, something else happens. So we were originally looking at a metal roof, but as far as structurally, we don't know how sound that building is to take a metal roof. So we're gonna have to, when they get in and start exploring, we're gonna know more. So, and then they'll make recommendations of what type of roof we need to go back with.
But you are looking to put some pitch on it, slope or pitch?
There will definitely, there will not be another flat roof. As long as I'm here, there will not be another flat roof that's put on in this district. So they will be pitched. So, and I believe code now is requiring them to be pitched. So.
And we can't work on both roofs at the same time?
Possibly, but Delaney's nowhere near what we have at with the situation with the CIA building. I mean, we're daily, when we have rain, having to duck and cover and really worry about losing computers and all that stuff. So, I mean, we can explore that, but right now we're just trying to get one.
I think that would be helpful to parents to at least explore it, because how many employees do you have in the CIA building that's being affected right now?
Everyone.
So, maybe 10?
Yeah.
But then you have a whole
We also have
school.
equipment files, you know,
do, but I think
special ed
you've got a
files,
lot
yeah.
of parents that if we could at least make the effort to try to do them simultaneously, that would just ease their.
I'd agree with Julie. I think that we need to do everything we can to get Delaney in a better state than it is as quickly as we can.
Without all the buckets in the gym?
Buckets and you know, probably problems in the walls, and there's a lot going on there. And
Wet
so,
ceiling tile, so.
yeah, I mean,
I asked Chad, can I speak? In talking with the roofers, the roof at the CIA building is much more severely damaged and deteriorating over the Delaney roof. We do know that that's an issue with the teachers and the staff and the kids down there. What we're hoping to do, because we can move 18 teachers out of the building, maybe send them to a campus to work for a month, but it's real hard to move the kids out of the way. So we're going to propose it at the same time, but we may not be able to start the work at the same time. So it won't be that we won't be doing Delaney, it's just we want to do it when it's safe to get the kids out of the way on there. So
I think that's key. If we can communicate that we're working on it, it's in the plan, that will satisfy the parents and the teachers to feel like they've been
And
heard.
without disturbing.
Without disturbing
kids.
learning.
And that is our biggest concern, is that, yeah, we'd like to do it both at the same time, but the timing may not work to where we can get it done.
I mean, the idea of ripping off a roof while you're having classrooms would probably be a problem. I mean, it's not a fun thing to be in a house that's going on, but I do think that, you know, the idea that we look at all these things and explain to them, it's just not practical to try to do this in a school day. So when do you do it? Do you do it on a break? I mean, I don't know, but.
One company said they could work at night, but then how much, you know, when they're peeling off stuff and then trying to replace it, you know, and then it's not done by the next morning, you got kids, that's not real practical, so.
Parking lots a mess,
Communicating
flat
to
tires and all
those
that kind of
parents
stuff.
is key. They know we got it. Because I know that's one buzz going around right now. I was reading.
Yeah, and I will say this, We do not have mold in Delaney. So what they're seeing is tiles that have gotten wet and they're stained with the brown, but they're not, there's no mold. We've had mold testing. So let me eliminate that. What you read on the social media isn't true, but if people would call us and ask us, we could tell them, but they choose to just get on social media. And I'm going to talk about that again because social media, getting on social media instead of calling us and asking us doesn't help solve anything. So if you have questions, come see us and talk to us, and we will answer those questions. But we do not have mold issues in Delaney.
Awesome.
All right. Superintendent's report, campus reports.
We'll start with Patterson.
Good afternoon. Okay, we'd like to start with student achievement. Our students completed the middle of the year MAP assessments, and our kindergarten students scored higher than the national average in reading. The third graders scored higher than the national average in math, and our fourth graders scored well above the national average in reading and math. We're super proud of the progress our students are making. We just had family engagement night that was hosted at Delaney Elementary on February 11th. This was an opportunity for our students to experience various engaging and high-level thinking activities. I'd like to thank Ross Perot Museum for providing this experience and Delaney for hosting. It was a fun night. Friday reflections. During Friday announcements, Ms. Joan has been reading historical facts of African Americans that have contributed to the world. Our kindergarten students are exploring the ocean, and if you swing by Patterson, the kindergarten hallway is being transformed into an ocean. It's quite fun to walk through and experience. In the picture provided, her class is in the picture creating a fish using doppers. For our student highlight, Adelaide Sanchez, she's a third grader. She portrays all the qualities of a model third grade student. She comes in every day with a smile on her face and excited to come to school. She tries her hardest on every single assignment or activity, and she gives 100% all the time. She's a leader and looked up to by her peers. She's earned that by being kind, helping others, and cheering others on to do their best. She never has a negative thing to say and is only uplifting and positive. She's qualified recently for the GT program this year and is excited to start her new adventure with that program. We know she'll excel because of the way she holds herself to a high standard and meets every task head on. She's a joy to teach, and we're very proud of her. For our staff highlight, we like to highlight Ms. Zimmerman. She's our math interventionist and a huge asset to our campus. She takes the time to disaggregate data, interpret the TEKS, compiles campus assessment data, plans lessons, supports teachers, and provides academic support to many students. Ms. Zimmerman has led our house program on top of all that for the last 2 years. This takes a lot of time and dedication to create lessons, plan house meetings, assign students to their houses, and track the points, plan the parties, and all the incentives. So she spends countless hours for our school, and we are very, very thankful for her. And that about wraps it up for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I have laryngitis. I'm sorry. It's a great day to be a Wildcat, and at JFD we do it well. Our student achievement activities, we did a Future Cities competition at UTA. It was amazing. Our kids did really good. They came in 5th place. We did the STEM night, and we did it with Patterson, and it was so much fun. The Perot Museum came out. The kids loved it, and I think we did too. We did a 4th grade field trip to Austin. We do it every year. The kids really look forward to it. They went to the state capitol and the Bob Bullock Museum. We are incorporating an essay contest with the character traits of our month, and this month is perseverance, and our counselor, Miss Mock, is getting that going, and our kids are really doing well. Our community collaboration, we had our PTO meeting on the 10th, and our first grade students performed. We had a lot of parents come. We had our SBDMC meeting on the 19th, and we get weekly food bags from one of our churches, and we're very grateful for that. Our safe and culturally sensitive environment, we do character focus each month, and February is perseverance. And of course, we're doing an essay contest with that. And this month, we'd like to highlight one of our teachers, Mrs. Hannon. She's our GT teacher. She's amazing. She has a heart for it, and it shows each day. She runs our GT program, and it's growing continually. They just finished their project in competition for Future Cities. She also does our morning announcements. If you haven't seen them, they're amazing. The kids come and they do all the announcements, or what we're eating for the day, anything we want, they do, and she just kind of sits back and lets them do it. She facilitates our Genius Hour, where our students are enriched. She maintains our school Facebook, and I'm so thankful for that. And she's I'm sorry, I don't like that. She's a huge asset, and we are very blessed to have her. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to start out with telling you that we had our first round of benchmarks last week, and I know this doesn't sound really good, but our fifth graders scored 68% of our fifth graders met standard on the reading star that was publicly released from last year. Now the TEKS have changed. We haven't taught everything yet. But at 68%, that gives us something to work with. And so I was really excited to see that. And we meet tomorrow in our care team meetings to look at the data, make adjustments. The interventionists have already broken down the benchmark data to what they know and what they don't know. And so I feel like we're at a really good spot, knock on for Micah. We had a Valentine's dance last Friday. It was lots of roses and teddy bears and lots of emotion that night with the students. We have a whiz quiz team that meets every Tuesday and matches up with trivia questions. Most of the schools that we are playing against are in Mansfield, and this last Tuesday we beat the team by 10 points. So it was really exciting. If you've ever been to a whiz quiz match, it made me feel like I needed to study some trivia. They were like asking those questions, and I think I knew two of them, two answers. We've started this year we've been doing PBIS, and students are earning Wildcat Cash when they are seen meeting our expectations in the hallway, in the cafeteria, in the restroom, and the playground. Well, now they are cashing in that cash for extra recess, free dress passes. We have a Wildcat Cave, which is kind of like a mini game room, and so they're using their cash for all those things. Our musical is going on, and it is absolutely incredible. It's tonight and tomorrow night, and you should have all received 2 free tickets.
You should go. I went to the performance today. I think they had 5 costume changes.
Yes.
5 complete scene changes.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's the colors, but whatever the lighting of the colors
the lighting,
is
yeah.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And also, great job to your 4th graders. Delaney and Patterson, they actually sat quietly.
They did.
And
They did.
The only time they lost is when the balloons came out at the end.
Mm-hmm. My hands started sweating. I was like, oh.
I hope you're not as bad as that part was, but it's a great show. I am really impressed with what you've done.
It is incredible. Like I told the audience tonight, I was having like a proud principal moment. It felt like a good, proud mom moment times about 75. You just can't believe it. You have to remind yourself, these are 11 and 12-year-old children. You got to see it if you can. And then we are having open house on Wednesday, March the 4th from 5:30 to 6:30. We'll also be having our book fair that week. And then I wanted to highlight one of our house meetings. We meet in our houses every Monday. And Monday before last, the Yellow House met and we talked about stress and what causes student stress, and then what are some things that can calm them when they are feeling stressful. And so they were drawing pictures and writing words to demonstrate that, and then we all shared our thoughts. And so I felt like that was very beneficial to the students to have that conversation. Any questions?
I have one.
Okay.
Have you discussed data binders before to where they understand? Do y'all understand what data binders are?
Okay, I can explain it.
And kind of why that is significant. You kind of
Yes.
didn't touch on that, but I'd like you to explain why that is significant.
Okay. What's going to happen now is the students will see the results of their benchmark, and my interventionist has created a data sheet for each student to put in their data binder, and they're going to go look. They're going to go back through their benchmark test, and each question is related to one of the TEKs, and they will color in red or green depending on whether they got that question right or not. And then they'll look for trends in what they know and what they don't know. And then they will have an opportunity to choose from a playlist and of how they want to relearn those objectives. So, for example, I went into a classroom and the students had their Chromebooks out, they had their data binders, and they were on Education Galaxy, and they were picking lessons according to the red areas of their data. And we've done this all year. We kind of started out slow, but now I think we have a good handle on and a good understanding, the students do, that they are taking ownership of their own learning.
And that's what I really want to get at, is the significance that the students are taking the ownership for their learning.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to ask you about the Wildcat Cache and stuff. I know last year we had some real discipline issues and blending. Is this helping? Are you seeing the kids doing better and acting better?
I am from the classrooms where it's being done consistently. Mm-hmm. I've started on the morning announcements going over the expectations. In the beginning, it was to be taught in the homeroom classroom, and it's really, it all depends on the adult in charge. If they're in the hallway with that Wildcat Cache and giving it to students as they're showing the expectations, it is so apparent because the kids are in line following, the expectations that we've set out. And so we are getting stronger and better. I'm still expecting 100% participation, but I think school-wide that is a very effective method. It really does help.
I just didn't know if the discipline, if it had helped and stuff, so that's good.
Where it's being used consistently, it has definitely helped.
Isn't that how it is?
Yes. Yes. They will work. If you buy into them and give them something to work for, they will do it. I haven't been in a situation where, or very few, where it hasn't worked. So, any other questions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening. So, starting with our student achievement at the junior high, we have our teachers who all got training on their TEL-PASS exam, and our students will start testing on their TEL-PASS next week. So, and that's for our ESL students. And we are currently taking our interim test, and we finish up next week on the 27th. We also received our MAP scores back, and the important thing, besides the scores, is that we want to make sure that the parents are getting those scores as well. So those will go out with report cards. And again, it's just a good conversation piece for us to have with our parents so that they know where their kids are with us with the test. And the beautiful thing about it is that it tells if they're on track to pass the STAR, ACT, and SAT. So it's really good information. On the 27th, we'll take our 8th graders to visit the high school, and they'll take a tour. So kids are excited about that. It's a little buzz to see what they're in for when they get to high school. And I'm sure Kegel's excited to see them. And our 8th grade students will receive their course selection forms on the 28th so that they can get started on taking some courses. And I'm sure Kegel will talk about some of the courses that got approved that our kids are already excited about. So we're looking forward to that. For our community collaboration, we have a few things going on. We have our Black History essay contest, and the winners 3 prizes. I know one was wireless headphones, a set of books, and then Rubik's Cubes. And I was like, Rubik's Cubes, we're bringing those back. But apparently kids are loving those. We also had our GT Family Engagement Night with Perot Museum. So just like the other schools are talking about, it was a good turnout. Kids were really engaged. I got a few emails from parents, and they were really happy to see something. And working in different districts, this is the first time I've actually seen something for GT kids specifically. So I thought it was really good. Our Finer Things Club will be going to the Holocaust Museum next week. So we're excited about that. Our Girls Talk group went to the Pecan Manor Nursing Home, and they played bingo with the residents there. So I thought it was good for them to give back to the community and help others. On the 24th, we will. What's the words I'm looking for? On the 24th, they're going to have Kobe Bryant's funeral, like the public version of the funeral, and we are going to show some solidarity, and we will. So, for me personally, I'm always looking for a reason to wear my Lakers gear, but we'll have the students. They'll have, if they have Lakers gear or Kobe gear, they can wear that, and or any basketball team. But at 8:24, we'll have a moment of silence, and Kobe Bryant has a short animation film that he actually got an Oscar for, so we'll show that, and that's based on the poem that he wrote as well. So we'll be doing that on the 24th. And then our PTO will be having a hangout night. It's a great fundraiser if you guys want to come and hang out with a bunch of 7th and 8th graders that are eating candy and soda. Come on. We'll take all the help we can get. For safe and culturally sensitive environment, we have our KJS Food Bank, which is still going very well. We have a lot of donations, and we paired up with a couple of churches, so that's been real helpful. And then we have our Project Adam is coming to train our teachers on hands-only CPR, and Jimmy would like to know that it is free.
Favorite word.
Do you guys have any questions for us?
Sounds great.
Okay.
All right. I want to talk about a few opportunities that we have. Usually at this time of year, we present our academic handbook for the high school. We have, Dr. Devlin has helped us, and Dr. Vu, we have proposed 18 new courses at the high school. And trying to do those, I want to give a little bit of explanation. So that academic handbook is in some reworks. We've also, I've been working with Ms. Rabelais. She is going to take some of the edits that we make and use some of the new branding to really put out a better product. But there are some things in those 18 courses. Some of those courses, Mr. Rhines just talked about. Some CTE courses have been moved down from the high school and added to the junior high, that they have some opportunities. We're aligning with the state with our sports medicine program will now become kinesiology. So not all of those are new. Some are replacing. Some are realigning with the state. But we do have some new programs. We started registration this week for our juniors and sophomores who are moving up to be seniors and juniors this year. we do and we have put on the course additions that were approved through Dr. Vu and everyone. We have added the 3 on-ramps courses. Again, that academic handbook before we put on-ramps in University of Texas and all of those things. I've talked with some of you about those courses before. I'll talk more whenever you want me to, but maybe that's never, I don't know. But before we stamp that, the reason I say that is we are moving ahead in our student registration as if those programs are going to be approved. But I want to tell the board there are some things that we have to have MOU agreements that you have to approve as the board. One of those is the agreement with the University of Texas and the on-ramps program. But we are approving because one of the things that we need is we need to make sure that we have enough student interest in registration to make that a viable program, because we have to be very careful with our staffing, especially with where we are right now. We don't expect a large increase in students, and that would mean our staffing would stay the same if our population stays generally the same. And so with those staffing patterns, we need to make sure that our numbers are viable. But that MOU is probably coming to you soon. I know University of Texas has not sent that out. We've also put in our course proposals, TCC, the 5 courses of that 18, or 5 of those courses will be the dual credit welding program from course 1 to course 5. We have 6 spots, and that's what we're selling to our students right now. It is going to take a special situation for students. They're going to have to be able to give up afternoons pretty much for the course of the year. From about 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock is about the time frame, and so that does limit a lot of our students. So we are seeking that first group, and we're still waiting, I believe, Dr. Devlin, on that MOU as well. It'll be an amendment to our current one, and so that is something you are going to need. But those programs are all there, as well as some other things that the state has required, and I'll go over those when we do those next month. But I need the board to know those opportunities are there for our students. The course list also includes, speaking of opportunities, this year you helped us create the culinary program, and one of those courses is the practicum in culinary. So when you see that, notice that's a natural progression course in that sequence that was designed. We have, speaking of opportunities for students, every one of our students, we've been closely monitoring how many of our seniors have reached that point, that CCMR point that they all have for accountability, meaning they are either college, career, or military ready. There are standards for that. Some of those standards for college readiness are determined by the SAT and TSI. I want to make sure that our board knows that our seniors in Kennedale ISD, every one of them will have the opportunity to take the SAT, and every one of them will have the opportunity to take the TSI free of charge because of the investment that we have made through campus and state funds from House Bill 3. So I want you to understand that we were monitoring. Ms. Newcomer has a spreadsheet that is pretty amazing, but she is following every kid to make sure that we try to get their point for accountability purposes, and that our students, like others districts, are having that opportunity. With that said, speaking of other opportunities, I know that we had a visit. If you saw a Facebook page, Tarleton State University president, he has been visiting campuses. He did come to Kennedale. One of the things that they have talked to us about is a automatic top 25% acceptance and some things. And that also comes, they are looking at who would typically attend that university, and they are looking at students in that target 10 to 30% range of graduating classes. And so some other things they talked to us about is that our top 25%, if we came to an agreement with them, would not have to do SAT or things that also cost some of our economically disadvantaged students. What keeps them applying from universities, like application fees, those would be waived if the district would agree to that. So Mr. G will probably get more information on that to you as it comes, but that was a pretty neat visit, and they were pretty impressed, I think, with Kennedale High School and some of the things that we have to offer in this district, but that may be something that's coming your way. And finally, before I got two events that I want to talk to you about, I want to tell you that this year we reached out. Our Education Foundation did support also in a grant robotics program. I didn't know how we were going to do this, and we have moved from fledgling, barely off the ground robot that did one function in the first spring to now another. In the first robotics, we have a robot that is pretty good, and we have a team together with combined kids that have got some experience, and now they did get the call up and qualified for the state first robotics and small school division 1A through 4A. And I say that we moved from fledgling robotics. One of the organizations has also came to tour our high school facility. They would like to be on the 3-year rotation to host the regional meet here in North Texas for Best Robotics, which was the first competition we went in. We did tour that facility. They like our facility because of the proximity of the gyms, the cafeteria, the auditorium, the choir room for check-in and things like that. And so they have said that they would really like to put us on a rotation with 2 of the Arlington schools so they can stay mid-metroplex. And so we've got some considerations in all of that, and we don't know what our schedules are for football, volleyball, whatever's in it. Not football's not in the gym, of course, but if it stays this cold, it could be, I guess. But we need to check those, but that could be coming your way. And then we've had today, the other organization ask if Kennedale High School would like to take over the El Dorado League of the First Robotics. Now, I don't know if somebody just said, hey, look, there's somebody who might do that, but they have said, I know with the first opportunity is a good way for us to really showcase our high school and also put that at the forefront of some things that we do academically in a program that we may want to look onto. But I know that that would require facilities agreement, and Ms. Mode was with us on that tour, but I'm proud of these kids. Tuesday, you have a potential state champion in film. I hope that in the next board meeting, I will bring Brandon Isenz up here, and at the first board meeting, we may watch one of those 3-minute clips, but you do need to know, not only could he be state champion, but state runner-up in the animation category. And then our open house is March 2nd. Band spaghetti dinner is March 6th, and thank goodness it's 10 days till spring break.
One question, Mr. Gagel.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the extra classes, you mentioned welding. Was robotics on that list for?
Robotics one, yes, sir. And yes, sir, that's a good question. Yes, sir. Yep. And we've got different envisioning. We're trying to think of some things just to let you know, and having worked at the high school, it's hard to have a course, especially something so specialized, because the kids are so involved. We do have high rates of participation, extracurricular, co-curricular. But one of the things in envisioning these courses, there are a couple of courses that we could do that could almost be dual coded in PEIMS, where they could have that course during another class period that would naturally mix with some of our computer science classes and some things like that. So we're not necessarily looking at some of our traditional rules of having to have a certain number of students to make the course. We're trying to look at some things we can do more flexible to provide those opportunities, but it's pretty cool.
And on our culinary, they will be now, I spoke with our culinary teacher, and they are in a position where he feels that they can provide lunch for the Rotary Club, and the Rotary Club is so excited about having them provide lunch for them once a month. So, and that tells you where we've come with that program, from a fledgling beginning program, and now we're about to add the intermediate class this next year, but the students are already progressing at a very, very quick rate.
I've had 2 things, by the way. Bananas Foster dessert, if you ever ask for something. Their tomato bisque soup was pretty can I say one more thing? Sorry. Programs. No. Anybody ready to go home? I know spring break's 10 days away. We might just flow right into it. The other program that's boards helped start this year was the Success Center. That took a pretty bold move. It's been something I know we've discussed in the 7 years that I've been here. And I want to be very careful. Graduation rate was one of our things we needed to work on. They graduated their 13th graduate, and the 13th graduate was a 20-year-old, okay, who had come back to school. And so the look on his face when he smiled and said, I didn't ever think that I would graduate high school. I thought it was over. Now, that 13, by the way, and when I look at where we were in graduation rate, which was about between 91 and 2%, that 13 students, it's not all 1 year that they make up, but it takes, we're having a lot of seniors we're on that bubble, and it's given them an opportunity. If you see the letters that they write and the people that they think, it's going to be a pretty good day at graduation, because all the late ones, they're not coming to the board meeting, they're coming in May. And so you're going to see some neat things happening out of that program. The other thing that, it's reduced, some things that we've done have reduced our what we call senior watch list in our counseling office, just to watch graduates and see what courses. It's the smallest it's been since I've been there. And so, appreciate it. There we go.
Safety.
All right, good evening. No, it's getting late, so I will do however you want to do this. And really, the main premise of me coming up here to talk to you guys is just to let everybody know that we're in the process. We're rolling with the Safety and Security Committee, and this is a Texas education requirement under Section 37.0109, where we're supposed to have a dedicated safety committee with dedicated members identified specifically by this section. So this is a pretty long process to put together everything that this encompasses, this entails. It really means going in and rewriting a lot of different criteria that this section calls for. So this committee will play a very large part, or significant part, in ensuring that this is implemented properly. We do have the committee members that have been identified, and I'd first like to thank Mr. Hunt and Mr. Bisco for volunteering to, well, actually, we had to have the board president, but you did volunteer, so I appreciate that. And that's part of what this is about. There's a requirement that the specific positions that have to be on this committee per the state, the Office of Emergency Preparedness, in our case, it's the City of Kennedale Fire Chief, is the emergency management coordinator for the city. So that person has to be on this committee. So Chief Brown will be on there. The police department can be the police chief, Chief Williams, or his designee. We do have the school board president. And then, of course, we have to have a school board member, an additional member, the superintendent, a classroom teacher. So someone had already brought up Miss Zimmerman, and she has volunteered from Patterson to be our representative for our teacher position on this committee. And then we had to have two parents. And what I did, I put out an email to all the administrators on all the campuses looking for parents that'd be willing to take part in this and be, obviously, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on this, so a lot of work time that have to put in. So Toby Poor and Donna Jennings both volunteered to be a part of this committee as well. And the superintendent has the authority to add a designee, which is where I come in on that. So he's allowed to appoint one or more designees, so I'm part of this committee. So there's 9 people that are dedicated to this committee. And hopefully with this group, we'll have a really good, mix of input and discussion. I'm not going to get into all the specifics of everything that's required of this committee, because this is a lot of stuff. And I've already sent this email out to people that have been selected for the committee. And a lot of the work that I've been doing to revise our safety plans really revolve around having to meet this criteria. So,
can you address the situation that happened yesterday with the lockdown at the high school and outside of Arthur?
So, without getting into a whole lot of detail, unless you all have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has. Unfortunately, these type being involved in law enforcement, there's a level of fluidity that usually comes from these types of situations. I've looked into this. I've talked to the supervision at Mansfield Dispatch Operations Center. I actually talked to the dispatcher that made the phone call to the Kennedale High School, putting them into lockdown. I also spoke to the sergeant at Kennedale PD, and he told me what he said to the dispatcher. So essentially, there was some miscommunication between the person that was working the console, and the way their operation, just like many other operations are in a dispatch center, you have someone that works the console, and then you have other people that might be there to assist in some other way or some other capacity. So the dispatcher, who also happened to be the midnight supervisor for Mansfield Dispatch, was working into the morning hours. He was running the console when the 911 call came in. And at that point, you start having all the radio traffic and all the things that typically start happening in those types of situations. Again, very, very fluid situation. Everything's moving around, a lot of moving parts. At some point, the other dispatcher, day shift supervisor that I spoke with, came into the room. He told her to inform Kennedale to go into lockdown. And somewhere between the radio traffic that was conveyed to the dispatcher on the console from the police sergeant here at Kennedale, the miscommunication occurred from the dispatcher to the other dispatcher, who then got on the phone and started making, or was going to start making phone calls, and started with the high school. We got out there as soon as we possibly could. I carry my Kennedale police radio with me. I asked who was on lockdown. At that point, they had already cleared the schools, or the school it wasn't on lockdown any further. Found out where everybody was and went straight to that location. So the good thing was that the police were there very quickly. There was no threat to the school, the students, or anybody else at that point in time.
Can you define lockdown? I think there's a misconception on social media once again on what lockdown truly is, and what the perceptions that our schools were in a predicament where they were unsafe at the time.
So I guess something else that just really needs to be put out there is the schools are already required to be locked at all times. So you get buzzed in. Everyone knows that. So the chances of that situation where they just run into an open door they're minute. Is it still a possibility? Something that we discuss and we plan about, and we have discussions as a team? Sure, it's one of those what ifs. But so the school is already in a secure kind of a position as it is. The difference between a lockdown, the lockdown is when we have that credible, viable threat that's immediately threatening the life and safety of occupants of the building, people that are inside the building, students and staff, faculty, and so forth, either right at the door, right at a window, or inside the building. Okay. In this situation, there was no cause for that because the building is already in a secure position to begin with. That's really more of a lockout situation. So a lockout, the difference between a lockdown and a lockout is really just being a little bit more alert as to what's happening outside of the building. So at no point in time really was there a need for them to go into a lockdown so much, and preferably a lockout because the building is already secure as it is. Does that answer your question?
I think it does.
What happened? Was it a lockdown or a lockout this week?
They called a lockdown to the high school. So that the high school did go into lockdown, and to the high school's credit, they did a fantastic job. So all the drills and all the training that they've been doing is really going a long way. Really received a lot of good reports as to how that transpired. But because of that miscommunication between one dispatcher to the other, the school itself that most likely should have been in lockout at that point was not.
Is there anything on our end as the district that can prevent that miscommunication?
There's nothing else we can do at that point, and this is why I'm going to have a follow-up meeting with the management of the dispatch operations, because there's more questions as to, is it possible that well, again, I need to have a meeting with them. Let's just put it that way. We're at a I want to put this in a, we have to count on them they're the hub of communication. Any emergency services unit, especially dispatch operations, they're the catalyst of all operation. And so we count on them to give us the correct information. That's why I got on the radio asking what school is on lockdown, because they're the ones that should know that, because they're the ones that receive the call from the police department. So all I could do was try to verify what was happening at that point in time. There was really no way for me to prevent, or us to prevent, that miscommunication between two people in the dispatch operations center.
And was anything communicated to the Arthur parents where the situation after the fact, and reassuring them, just kind of what you told us without all the details, that it was handled, it was taken care of? And I mean, I was reading through the Facebook comments, and that you were even there. That, as a parent, to me is very reassuring that you were there. So was anything communicated to parents? I think that's the misstep. I think a lot of people understand that mistakes happen, and I think it's not just a conversation for us, but also something to have with the city, because they're the ones that are contracting through Mansfield, and for them to see, hey, this is a misstep, but how do we reassure those parents that feel like, hey, you tried to pull one on me because this happened over here, but we didn't know? And I'm not saying that's what happened. That's just...
One, we didn't have all the information until a later time period. They were still gathering information because it was happening. So, it happens quickly, and there's a lot of chatter. So they didn't have all the information to put out. The other I'm going to go back to social media. You have the ones on social media who want to stir up things as well. And the reality is that the kids were never in harm's way. Mr. Holguin was there, and so was our SRO from the junior high school. We're both there before anything even. The suspect was already in custody, I believe, in a very fast amount of time, or a quick amount of time. So
to Julie's point, was that communicated though to the parents? Did they know that?
The only discussion that I had was communication with the staff at the school.
And I know that Mrs. Clark, whenever parents called and had questions, she was answering their questions, But as far as like putting something out, I guess the police would be the ones that needed to say that this should have been in lockdown. This campus should have been in lockdown instead of this campus,
I agree. I don't think it was a Kennedale ISD issue at all. I think a lot of clarifying that with the public would say, hey, look, this was a misstep. We did what we were told. We followed protocol, but we need to work on the same page and make sure everybody, because maybe Mansfield, the dispatch isn't working for us anymore. I mean, that's just something to have a conversation with, I guess, with the city.
And we're dependent upon the city's contract with Mansfield. KPD is the one who contracts with Mansfield for their communications.
And to the police department's credit, if I can add, the sergeant that I work with routinely, he's also the supervisor over the school resource officers. I know him very well professionally, and he's very, very sharp. And he recognized almost immediately when that call went out, just knowing the proximity of the call location to the schools, and that's why he jumped on the police radio as quickly as he could and said, hey, we need to lock down these 3 schools. And again, that's part of the conversation I need to have with them next week when I meet with the management of dispatch operations. Is, there are what we call computer-aided dispatch maps that should also prompt for geographic purposes, where things are happening. So my question is, even if there was a miscommunication between the 2 dispatchers, is it possible that in the future we can just double check the map locations per call location? I used to be on the dispatch patrol committee at Arlington PD for a number of years, so I know the capabilities of some of the things they can do and they should have. And I've also, as a reserve police officer with Kennedale PD, I've taken a tour and been in their dispatch operations, so they have the same equipment. Most of the more modern operations do. So this is something that I actually can help follow up on to see what we can do to maybe keep this from happening again in the future.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right. two other things. One, we have Patterson's playground progress. The site prep should be complete by the March 16th. The safety and compliance should be complete by the 31st. The build week begins on the 31st of March as well. And then the post-build complete should be by April 7th. So that was on the playground at Patterson. Coach Barrett and I will be headed to Pflugerville to attend the UIL District Assignment Appeals Committee hearing on the 25th of February. We are in the second round of appeals for trying to get out of our basketball and volleyball districts because of the district that we're in may not have the sub-varsity games, and we will be struggling to schedule sub-varsity games, and we're trying to get moved into another district.
Not football, just volleyball and
volleyball and basketball.
Volleyball and basketball into a separate district.
So
almost all
the
charter.
reality is we are in with a bunch of charter schools, and
They don't have JV.
unfortunately, sometimes the charter schools, by the time halfway through the season, they don't even have a varsity team anymore. But most of them don't even have sub-varsity, especially freshman teams, for us to schedule, which creates us having to go out and find other school districts to try to create a schedule that's very difficult to do. So we're trying to get out of that situation. Good. So,
Does that happen often or not? Or, I mean,
we'll see. I'm not gonna hold my breath. So.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We'll see how good of a speaker Coach Barrett is. Convince her, you know. Anyway. So that's pretty much, I think, everything. I think I've talked about a lot of things tonight, so we're ready to roll.
Next meeting, March 26th, 6 and 7. And then summer leadership is either the 17th or the 24th.
And that's on here because we have to start getting registered by when, Tracy?
It's opening up
Special session.
It's opening up soon.
And that fills up quickly. So you need to start thinking about where you want to attend for summer leadership.
Everybody okay with Fort Worth again?
Yep.
Okay. Sean?
Sure.
Okay, Fort Worth it is.
Fort Worth,
Let's
okay.
do Fort
All
Worth.
right. And then back to the regular board meeting. Are you okay with the work session again for the hour like we did with Holly, and doing the next one for the vision or the mission and beliefs and values? Okay, all right.
Training requirements, we still need to get all eight of us together for our team of 8.
Actually, you will get credit for the ones that were there, but you really will not get, just need to get credit for it.
And then we'll do another one when we get new.
Tracy verified that.
That in April, or that report's in April.
And this is this is the new training requirements for school members. So they've changed it. They've kind of taken the tiers out, and now they've got just general categories: new trustee, experienced trustees, and then they broke it into all the areas that you have to get the different trainings in. So they've taken away the 4 tiers.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Mr. G and I went to the TASB advocacy meeting yesterday for Region 11. And I learned 2 things coming out of the meeting. It's real important that we get more trustees there, because what it starts with, y'all probably got a survey to say what the important issues you want TASB to talk about or focus on. There were 1,280 bills filed last year that affected education. There is no way we can track it. And so it's real important. The number one issue was continued support for the ability for school districts, counties, and cities to have the ability to advocate in Austin, because they were going to push that bill that says, you know, you can't have a lobbyist, quote, as they call it. That was the number one issue. The other issue is related to continued financing funding. Everyone questions whether or not next biennium will have the state funding available to continue what they said they're going to pay. So that was a big priority. Most of it were financial issues, but I learned that the bigger districts, Arlington, Mansfield, HEB sent at least 4 or 5 trustees. And what happens, the trustees get to vote on the priorities. We took those 10 and they actually put subsections in them and asked for us to pick our top 5. And so it turns out those districts with lots of trustees controlled the agenda of the 5 items that will become the priority for Region 11. I also learned that you shouldn't sit at the table with districts whose trustees you took an employee from, Dr. Vu. They start up a little upset with us, but it worked out okay. And there is, you could see from the conversations, the smaller districts, Kennedale, Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, I mean, those smaller districts, the issues important to us were not what was important to HEB, Arlington, Mansfield. And so next time this comes around, please, if you can, let's help ourselves, perhaps be involved. We still have a chance. There's a resolution process. We selected 9 delegates last night who will go to the next round of meetings, and from those regions, 9 each, they cut it down to 4 who become the team that talks, and there'll be a resolution opportunity if there's something that we think is important. There's a way maybe to worm it into some of the issues, like there's a discussion about charters. And initially the discussion was we want to push back against charters, but really the reality is we just want charters to be on the same playing field. They compete with us. They offer services that we can't get. It's not necessarily bad, but they don't have to compete in the same way. And so it's important that we make those fine tunings as you can. So I know it's a lot of wonk stuff, but a lot of it's in the end here, but yeah, it was an interesting night. So I'll challenge y'all if you can, come next year, be involved.
We also attended a meeting, work session with the city on Tuesday night, dealing with
violence in schools, well, actually family violence and domestic violence in homes. Mayor Ken Shedder came and presented to the city council that Burleson has a special municipal ordinance that say in a domestic violence situation, if the police identified family violence has occurred, they make it a municipal crime if it occurs in the presence of a child. And so then they're allowed to have an opportunity to have some engagement with the child. The missing piece for all that, and Kennedale might be the 2nd school district in Texas, if we can work it out, only San Antonio does it, that you could take the information from the police department and they could at least pass it to the school, say, just so you know, this child was engaged in this circumstance last night. One, maybe explains why that child is having a problem that day in school, but it also might turn out with information, we might find that our behavior problems come from a history of this occurring in their homes. And so we're going to try to stay engaged and kind of collaborate to get, if the city will do it, work a way that their police department perhaps shares the information with the district somehow. There's a question there.
Is that both cities, Arlington and?
Right now it's only Kennedale's side. So again, we haven't gotten with Arlington yet. And then the other piece that may work is, we talked about how do we get services to our students. We can't fund it. One Safe Place offers additional services. So again, if we can identify those kids and families, there might be a way that we can help direct them there and it doesn't violate any issues. And included in their list may be religious providers that we can't certainly direct them to. So there's an opportunity, if it all works out right, that we can help these kids in those circumstances, help ourselves with their behavior issues in our campuses if we can identify that linkage. So it was a really interesting topic and unusual. And again, we could be the 2nd district in Texas that has this available to us. So we're on the forefront of opportunities.
Very good, very good. Thank y'all for going.
Thank you for doing it, yeah.
Well, thank our mayor. He actually coordinated and invited us.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thinking of us.
Good.
It was a good meeting.
Very good. All right, anything else?
Oh, census. I have been the last 2 days to 2 different census meetings. Big push for everybody to get out and get counted in the census, and for underserved populations that don't really participate in the census, to encourage them to get involved in the census, because the resources of the community are, even though they may not get counted, they're still